Hey there, my cousin. How are you?
Hello there, Natalie. my most learned
We
cousin. How are
finally
you
made
doing?
it.
Right, right.
Well, thank you. So,
Right.
talk to me about this era that we're getting ready to speak on.
Yes, that issue that we spoke about earlier stayed with me, stayed on my mind for a number of years about what the media says, their assertions on accumulated data that they have compiled based on research that they claim, and also polls and statistics and so on about certain issues, especially concerning health and the comparative health between non-white people in America and the world, primarily in America, and also non-white people, especially Black Americans, as they call African Americans. And I wanted to admonish all people listening to that and believing those kinds of assertions from the media to beware of believing that, because many times it's tilted and it's based on assertions that are not true. It's slanted, in other words, in favor all the time of the white population. One that actually declare that Black and other non-white people have more defective physical and health issues than the white population. For example, they always have more illnesses and health defects than whites. And they say that Blacks have more high blood pressure than whites do. I believe that is very untrue. It's tilted. It's not true. They also say that Blacks have almost everything under the sun concerning the defects than whites. Now, one example I noted long years ago when I was about 18 years old, I was reading in Reader's Digest, which is a white publication, as you know. Right. And they declared at that time in Reader's Digest, white people had more heart attacks, especially white men, than any other group in the United States. And they based their assertion on the fact that white men mostly had occupations that required more responsibility and more hours of work and so on. And therefore, and also that they had a richer diet. For example, it was popular for them at that time to eat a great deal of steak and beef and potatoes, meat and potatoes, as it were captioned. And they said that caused white men, who basically were in a higher class economic level, according to these statistics released, is that caused middle-class white men who had either professional type jobs or either they owned businesses. They worked more and they had more responsibility there, and they ate a certain type of diet that was popular among them, meat and potatoes, as they called it. So they would have heart attacks. So it was considered one physical problem for middle-class whites who were considered better than other people, basically. Now, years later, as we know, there was a great big issue, public issue in the United States about the problem of sickle cell disease and how it got started and where it came from. And all these researchers found, or they declared, that the sickle cell illness was hereditary. It was a genetic
I remember that.
In African people. And therefore, it had actually been transmitted over here because it was hereditary in the genes. That's what they declared. And they isolated that, basically intimated that it was only found in Africans and African genes and people descended from Africans, like African Americans. So they did a whole lot of publicity on that in the name of helping these African Americans. They started a lot of clinic kind of thing in order to try to combat that and try to treat it. Okay? And that went on, I think, for 2 or 3 years, several years. It was ongoing. All the time, the intimation by these researchers and so forth about the genetic defect, as it were, they were actually intimating or suggesting that white people were privileged because they didn't have this genetic problem. So therefore, it was a black genetic defective issue. Okay. And they did that. They publicized that over and over extensively. However, after it was in effect for several years, some researchers accidentally found out that it was showing up in Southern Europe, in the Mediterranean area, among Greeks and Italians, you see,
Okay.
and some Portuguese. They were found having sickle cell disease. And it was the same kind of sickle cell disease. It was genetic. It was not contagious. It was genetic. It was a genetic defect. My assertion is based on observation. And the media who disseminates this kind of information, because they're slanted, they're going to always, declare what I'm saying is not true, but what they're saying is true, and they have data on it and I don't. Well, sure, because they're the ones that basically set it up like that.